Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Rabbi Aharon Attitude Adjustment. Today's lesson is perhaps a bit overdue because I had somebody ask me about this week. For those of you who've been going along with us, you've learned a lot of the tools that can take you to a much closer relationship with your Creator, which should bring you to a much happier place in life. We've talked about Emunah, we've talked about Bitachon, we've talked about Teshuvah, we've talked about personal prayer every day. But one thing we haven't talked about is if you've been doing these for a while, what happens? Where do you go? And we're going to talk about that today. What happens is when you start doing it, you feel good immediately, or you should if you're doing the right things. And that feeling of good will last for days, weeks, maybe months. At some point, however, you'll look around you and you'll realize to yourself that things seem to be getting harder than they were before. They're not so good as you thought they were. And you think to yourself, oh my gosh, what have I done? I've gone out of the frying pan and into the fire. It's even worse now than it was before. And we've all been through this. So I can tell you with a great degree of confidence, it's something you need to understand as part of the process. And I'm going to tell you how at the end of this. There's another tool I'm going to give you today. And actually, it was a nickname of a man who lived about 2,000 years ago. His name was Nachum, and they called him Nachum Ish Gamzu Latova. And that's Hebrew for Nachum, the man who says, this too is for good. And I want to tell you a brief story about him to give you an idea of the kind of a tzaddik, the kind of an individual this man was, how highly elevated he was. Very short, I'm going to give you the abridged version of the story. The people of Israel wanted to send a tribute to the emperor in Rome. So they gathered up jewels and gold and all the finery they could get, and they put it into a big trunk. Who's going to take it, though? And the answer is, who else but Nachum Ish Gamzu Latova? He was trustworthy. He was a tzaddik. What could go wrong when he took this with him? So he goes, and he's on his way. And overnight he has to stop at an inn. And then the innkeeper says, what's in there? And Nachum says, valuables. He says, why don't you let me keep them for you so they don't get stolen? He says, great, so he keeps them. Well, when Nachum goes to his room, the innkeeper looks and sees what's in there, and he can't avoid the temptation. He takes everything out of it, and he fills it with dirt, so it's still heavy. So in the morning when Nachum Gamzu Latova leaves, he takes the basket with him, not realizing that his jewels have been replaced with what is dirt inside. He gets to the emperor. He says, the people of Israel bring you a tribute. And he takes the trunk and he opens it in front of the emperor. And the emperor sees the dirt and says, what is this, some kind of a joke? He says, no, this is special. Nachum Ish Gamzu Latova did not get easily flustered, just like I did. And he said, he must be for the best, so let me think about this. He thinks for just a moment. He says, this dirt, your majesty, is very special dirt. You throw it in the air, and it becomes spears and arrows for your enemies. Well, the emperor couldn't believe this, so he sends it out to an area where they were having a particularly tough time subduing an enemy, and they do what Nachum said to do. And would you believe it? That's exactly what happened. It turned into spears and into arrows, and the enemy ran away. And the man was simply delighted. So they go back. Nachum goes back to Israel. And on his way back, he has occasion to stop at the same inn. But he doesn't say anything to the guys who were there. They ask him, how did it go in Rome? He said, very well, actually. And he tells them the story. So these men, they're just amazed. They go back to where they put the dirt in his place, into his trunk before. They put more dirt in the trunk, and they went off themselves to Rome. And they went to the emperor and said, a tribute to the emperor from us. Because Nachum, when he left Rome, did not leave empty-handed. He left with great wealth to take back to his people. And they figured if the emperor will do this once, he'll do it again. And he looks at this, and the emperor says, what is this? It's dirt. And they said the same thing that Nachum said. And when the emperor threw it up in the air, it fell to the ground, because all it was dirt. You see the difference between having Emunah and the difference of just being somebody who's trying to get something over on somebody. Now, the reason I tell you this story is you can adapt this type of an attitude in your own life, remembering everything is just for the good, and I'll tell you why. Remember we talked about the fact that things seem to get better and then they seem to get worse after that? This is a normal manifestation. It's normal because what ends up happening is you're here when you start. As you do the things we talk about, you get closer, much closer to Hashem. You get closer to the point where you're now in a whole different league. It's like being a tennis player and going from being a C player to being a B player. When you start playing the other B players, you'll find a greater degree of difficulty than those you were playing at the C level. This too is for the good. It means that you've advanced and you're continuing to advance. And if you continue to do what you're doing, you continue on the path that you're on, you can go from that C player to a B player to an A player. Because this too is for good. Now, having said that, I wish you all a good Shabbos, and this weekend is Lag BaOmer. It's a very special holiday. Be very careful with the bonfires you burn. Be very careful with the arrows that you launch. And have a wonderful weekend. Now, I love to answer your questions, so if you have any or suggestions of what you'd like me to talk about, please put them under the picture. I'll get them, and I'll get to them. In the meantime, please share them with anybody you think would have value in it. And if you like it and you would like to hear more, there's over 24 more of these on YouTube at Rabbi Aharon, that's Rabbi Aharon, 2 words, attitude, 3rd word, adjustment. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful Shabbos, a great Lag BaOmer. See you next week, Bezrat Hashem. All the best. Bye-bye.